And CNN national security analyst James Clapper, the former director of national intelligence. Director Clapper, thank you so much for joining. Let's discuss Moscow has asked China for economic and military assistance. It's unclear whether China intends to provide it, but they say that they're open to it, according to CNN's sources. What happens if they do?
What happens if the Chinese provides help?
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
Yes,
well,
assistance.
First of all, I think this has actually set off a debate in China. I read a very interesting piece today by a prestigious Chinese think tanker that laid out what the real stark choices are for China. I think in the end they will treat this request, if it was made, because both parties have denied it, but let's assume they did. And I think the Chinese response will be much like the way they are with North Korea, in that they will provide some help, but not everything that the Russians want. And I think this whole situation in Ukraine has made the Chinese very uncomfortable. This is not what they bargained for when they signed up to their Grand Pact. And I think they're having second thoughts. So what I would anticipate is that the Chinese may provide non-lethal kinds of assistance. For example, I'm given to understand the Chinese asked for food, or the Russians asked the Chinese for food for the Russian soldiers.
Yes, for MREs, which are
but I think the Chinese are going to be very careful about providing any kind of weaponry or equipment that could show up on TV screens in Ukraine. I don't think they want to do that.
Yeah, what you call MREs, meals ready to eat, is what you're talking about. So you don't think they want that? What happens if that? What does that say about the state of the Russian army, though, if they are asking for MREs?
Well, that has to be, and this is obviously the reason the Russians, for their part, would deny these requests. This has to be it's a huge embarrassment. In fact, the performance of the Russian army in Ukraine has been a huge embarrassment. The vaunted modernization of the Russian army, well, not so much. And so just the fact that they have to ask their ally, China, for help this quick, we're not even into this 3 weeks, and the Russians are already appealing to the Chinese for help. So that's a very damning commentary as to the efficacy of the Russian army.
They're both denying it, right? China's denying it, Russia's denying it that they asked. But again, that's what our sources are saying.
That probably indicates that the request was actually made, the fact that they're both denying it.
Right on. Director Clapper, the Pentagon press secretary John Kirby was on with Wolf earlier and asked what the downside would be to U.S. directly providing jets to Ukraine. Watch this.
One of the downsides is that our intelligence community has assessed and told us that for the United States to provide fighter aircraft could be misconstrued by Mr. Putin as an escalatory measure and could spin the conflict to a higher level than it is right now. And I think we can all agree that having the United States and Russia involved in an escalatory conflict, two nuclear powers, is not only not good for the world, of course, but it's not good for the people of Ukraine.
So, first, Director, do you agree with Kirby's assessment that Putin would see providing planes directly as an escalatory measure?
Well, I can understand the case, but I'll tell you, Don, that to me there's a little bit of a logic disconnect here, because we've already provided thousands of Stingers, anti-aircraft weapons, Javelins, anti-tank weapons, which have resulted in the deaths of thousands of Russian soldiers and the loss of a lot of equipment. I'm hearing estimates up to 30% of the equipment that the Russians brought into Ukraine is gone or destroyed or captured. So, if these fighters, and my thinking has changed on this, going from Poland to Ukraine, I don't find it, and of course the claim is that they won't be effective. Well, if that's the case, then why are we so worried about this being escalatory? Again, I have to sympathize with the position the administration is here, because they are trying to walk a very tight wire here and not escalate. But I tell you, it is, I think, growing onerous, to me at least, where we are reacting to Putin's rules of engagement, and we're not setting out what the rules of engagement that we think ought to prevail.
What do you think that is?
I'm sorry?
What do you think that is?
Well, I think, it's as though we're responding to Putin's red lines all the time. And hopefully we're going to assert ourselves and establish some red lines. For example, the use of chemical weapons. And I think it's, the administration made it clear that there will be severe consequences. I'm sure, I trust that they're going to live up to that. So again, my thinking's changed a bit on this. If the Ukrainians think they need these fighters, then we should give some consideration to that. Now, that said, I have to acknowledge that we haven't seen much fighter activity on the part of the Ukrainians, and so there's probably a reason for that. I think they already have 56, or at least before the combat started, 56 MiG-29s. Well, they haven't been flying them, as best I can tell, a whole lot. So is that because of the threat posed by the Russian air defense system? I don't know. But I think the general principle here of I understand the reason for conservatism, but I think at some point we are going to have a confrontation with the Russians. It's not a question of if,
It's when.
it's a question of what.
Yeah, right on. You said that from the very beginning. So we shall see. Hopefully that won't happen, but yeah, I mean, you could be right. Thank you, Director. I appreciate it. We'll see you soon. Be well.
Thanks, son.